January 3rd, 2000.
500 years ago, we worried about falling off the edge of the Earth.
Incredible as it may seem, those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight.
In 1938, we worried that we were being invaded by Martians.
Are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars.
In 1979, we worried that Skylab would hit us when it fell from space.
Yes, 9.
And at the turn of the millennium, we worried about all of our computers crashing.
3, 2, 1, happy 2000!
Tonight, bug or bust? What happened to Y2K?
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Michelle McQueen.
We learned today, courtesy of the wire services, that a Kansas City couple was worried about the safety of their savings, what with all the talk about possible year 2000 computer problems. So they took all their money, as well as thousands in stocks and bonds, and put them into a home safe, which turned out not to be such a great idea, since the 5-foot vault was stolen from the couple's home. Well, not to worry, the safe was found abandoned in a field with all the contents intact. The thieves evidently couldn't get it open. 4 men are under arrest, including a man who knew the couple and was aware of their Y2K worries. So all's well that ends well, which about sums up the year 2000 conversion weekend, including today, the first full business day in most countries. There were the slot machines in Delaware that momentarily didn't take bets, the Godiva chocolate store in New York that briefly couldn't take cash, and this video store near Albany, New York, that presented a customer with a $91,000 late fee after a computer showed a movie was returned 100 years late. More seriously, in Bakersfield, California, the police computer dispatch system stopped working briefly after midnight. And in South Korea, about 900 customers lost heat for several hours. And the Pentagon belatedly reported that the processing for a critical intelligence satellite had ceased to function for several hours. All these too have been fixed. But in fact, there were very few problems. Was that because of the billions in dollars and man-hours poured into the fix, or because there was not much of a problem to begin with? And joining us now from his command center, the president's Y2K czar, John Koskinen. Mr. Koskinen, you said today that this may be your last briefing. Are things going that well?
Things are actually going very well, and we're delighted with the progress that's been made. It now appears very clear that the United States and most of the world, in fact, all the world at this time, have made a successful transition into the 21st century.
I'd like to ask you about that non-functioning Pentagon spy satellite. When did you find out that it wasn't working? We found out rather belatedly.
Well, it was, as you noted, a classified system, and so while it was not functioning, no one knew about it, which makes sense because you don't want to tell your enemies that your intelligence system is having difficulties. I received a series of classified briefings on a regular matter every day, so the first classified briefing after the problem was at 10 o'clock the next morning on Saturday, and at that point we discussed with the intelligence agency and the Defense Department the nature of the problem and the fact that they were now able to bring it partially back up to functioning, and that the Defense Department would be briefing on the matter later that morning.
It does beg the question of what else we may not know. Are there any other issues that have been made known to you that you'd like to let the public know about now?
No, it was the only significant system of that nature that was classified that failed. And in some ways, while it was obviously a major problem for a few hours, it was a very useful reminder to all of us that this was a real problem, and that if you didn't fix the systems appropriately, and certainly if it didn't do any work at all, they were not going to function at all.
Some people are questioning now whether all of this was overkill, whether the problems were that large to begin with, and whether this was a way to ensure some rather large bonuses for information technology consultants around the world. What do you have to say about that?
I say that no one who worked on this problem, no senior executive in a major bank, financial institution, telephone company, power company, federal agency thinks that. They all understand, after several years of work and spending hundreds of millions of dollars, that we averted a major disaster by successfully attacking the problem.
Is there any way this could all have been avoided? I'm sure that hindsight is 20/20. It's very easy for us to say this now, but is there any way all this could have been avoided?
Well, the simple answer is obviously if 30 or 40 years ago everybody had decided that the right way to program the years was with 4 digits. But at the time that decision was made, that is to go to 2 digits, Memory was very expensive. Processing time was very expensive. Computers were big, bulky, slow animals. And a lot of money and time was saved by identifying 1963 as 63. So over time, it became the standard programming practice, and it built into literally billions of lines of code, ultimately a fatal error.
This has been a fascinating experience for you, and you've indicated that we're almost out of the woods. When will we know whether we are truly out of the woods, and are there any upcoming targets that we should be attentive to?
Well, clearly, we'll continue to see reports, I think, in the next several days, and even perhaps longer that, of glitches here, there, and yon. We don't think any of them in the United States are going to be of great risk to anyone. They're not going to create major disruptions. Most of them, as the examples you gave, will be fixed rather quickly, but they'll continue to show up. A lot of people have to have their first payroll system functions. They have to do their first billing cycles. And we are continuing to monitor and think there is some chance in some of the developing countries that the problems they're going to see in their infrastructure will be the slow degradation of service rather than, the immediate collapse, which has not happened anywhere. But our analysis was, and we revealed all this to the public and discussed with them, that even if there were more serious problems in developing countries, they're not going to have any impact on the U.S. economy because, as we noted in the fall, the bulk of our trade and travel is with major developed countries, and we've been confident all along that they would do as well as we did. So that as we talked about the risks through the end of the year, we thought that what would happen has happened. That is, that the major countries would get through this fine, that in the United States we'd have basically minor glitches that would be isolated, and if there were any risk, it would be in developing countries, and we still haven't heard the end of that, but I don't think any of those problems as they occur over the next perhaps 2 or 3 weeks are going to have any noticeable impact on us.
The U.S., Great Britain spent quite a lot of money, and yet we were told that there might be problems in Italy, Russia, Japan, and yet the outcomes seem nearly identical. How do we explain that?
Well, one of the things that happened is I was never one of the ones who thought there would be problems in Japan. Prime Minister Obuchi asked me to visit with him and his senior cabinet officials in September of 1998 as a public demonstration on his part of their commitment to solve this problem, a rare event in Japanese tradition where they normally keep things to themselves. And I was confident working with them since then that they were not going to have major problems, and we said so. On the other hand, the Russians and the Chinese started very late, and for some time were in denial, and we spent a lot of time with them. And what's happened there, and in some of the other countries, is that once they got started, they worked very hard, and they had several advantages. First, they don't have as much information technology as we do. It's not as complicated. A lot of it is more straightforward, off-the-shelf equipment. And secondly, as they started working hard this year, they had the advantage of all the technical information we developed in the years prior to that in terms of where the problems actually were. A lot of the information technology involved did not present a threat to the basic infrastructure. And we spent a lot of time encouraging companies here and around the world to share technical information and fixes. And I think what happened was a lot of countries were able to isolate very quickly where their risks were, and in the last 3 to 6 months of this year, as we can see by the success of their efforts, focus on what really needed to be fixed. But I would stress we haven't, I think, heard the final story in some of those countries, but we are satisfied that whatever goes wrong from here on out is not going to be a basic threat to the economy or people's daily lives in the United States.
Well, congratulations on a job well done, and I'm sure you're looking forward to a well-needed rest. I just would like to know when you're going to come by to pick up all that bottled water and beef jerky that you made me buy.
Well, you'll remember the government's advice was buy enough water and food for a long midwinter weekend. So if you'd followed our advice, you'd be working your way through your supplies, and tomorrow you'd be out of them.
Well, John Koskinen, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Is it time to let down our guard on Y2K? 3 views when we come back.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by OnStar.
We never thought we'd use OnStar for snakes.
I just hate snakes.
Yeah, traveling through Arizona, we blew a front tire, shot off the road, and I looked down at the ground. It is crawling with rattlesnakes.
It was unbelievable.
I pushed the OnStar button. Within seconds, the OnStar advisor pinpointed our location and sent a tow truck.
Call the paramedics.
Yeah, and kept talking because we
hate snakes.
Yeah.
The one-touch connection to people who can help.
OnStar.
Call 1-800-OnStar-7.
We interrupt this program for an important news brief. MCI Now offers 5 cents a minute every day, so you can call every evening and all weekend long. Bugs?
This is big news.
Right, Bugs. Just 5 cents. Mere change.
Change is good.
To sign up, just punch in 1-800 every day.
If we punch. Ow. Meh, what a ham.
Call 1-800 every day to join.
Tomorrow, why businesses may be looking for you, even if you don't have skills, struggling to keep up with the strong economy, on ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
It's fishing time in Tennessee, and time for Fishing Expo 2000 at the Tennessee State Fairgrounds, January 6th through the 9th. Marine dealers will be making super deals on all 2,000 fishing boats with special show pricing and on-the-spot financing. There'll be truckloads of tackle, lures, rods, and reels, along with Canadian and American guide services. The industry's top anglers will be on hand daily to share their secrets to catching the big ones. This is Tennessee's only all-fishing event, Fishing Expo 2000 at the Tennessee State Fairgrounds.
Nashville's outdoor ice skating rink, River Skate, is back this holiday season and open now through January 16th. It's great, inexpensive family fun for the holidays from Metro Parks and Recreation. River Skate is located in Riverfront Park next to the Tennessee Foxtrot Carousel. Call the hotline for hours and daily updates. River Skate, made possible by these great sponsors.
And joining us now, three people who have been immersed in Y2K issues over the past 2 years. From Vancouver, Paul Kudrowski, Professor of Business and Commerce at the University of British Columbia. From our New York bureau, Marcia Stepanek, Technology Strategies Editor at Business Week. And Martin Emery, founder and CEO of Corporation 2000 and an ABC News consultant. Professor Kudrowski, last month you wrote in the Wall Street Journal that Y2K carnage abounds, but most of the carnage is from pundits doing screeching U-turns. You went on to say that alarmism is the real Y2K problem, but could businesses and governments really have avoided spending all this money and making all these fixes?
No, I think there's no question that the money had to be spent, problems were real, and things had to be done. It's just the extent to which the appearance of the problem so far outran the actual problem, and to the point that, you know, people were expecting, you know, we're disappointed almost. People almost seem to strike me as being disappointed as not seeing some kind of widespread systemic collapse January 1st, 2000. People were, in some way, led to believe that things would be much, much worse than they were, when the reality was, I think, to most reasonable observers, or should have been, that things were never going to be as bad as otherwise responsible people seemed to get out of line and believe that they were, responsible economists and others. And that's where I was disappointed, and think there's an awful lot of pundits who should be wandering around with a great deal of egg on their face.
Marcia Stepanek, was this overkill?
No, I don't think so. I think there might have been a little padding of technology spending budgets here and there, but for the most part, I think that this was money well spent. First of all, nobody said that this problem was going to show itself entirely at midnight or shortly thereafter. This problem had produced many glitches before the date change, and will continue to produce some glitches in the coming months. Secondly, companies don't spend something like $600 billion worldwide if there is no problem, basically to fix something that doesn't exist. Companies had known very early on through their own testing that this would certainly be a problem if they didn't attend to it. And in fact, there are many examples of how that was occurring as early as 2-3 years ago. And third, I don't think we've seen the total end of it. I think a lot of companies had been fixing their so-called mission-critical systems, those applications that would cause some real mayhem if fixes weren't forthcoming. But they did not fix the so-called non-mission critical problems, and they will continue to do that for the next 2-3 quarters. In fact, a lot of their technology spending budgets are earmarked to do just that.
Martin Emery, it's puzzling in a way that some countries started early and spent a lot, and yet other countries started much later, spent quite a bit less, and still seem to have had the same results. How did that happen?
I think that really happened. I was involved in Y2K from around late 95, 96. And at that stage, really, we had to actually invent the wheel and start testing that invention. I think a lot of the countries that started late actually benefited from the work that was carried out predominantly in the US, Canada, and the UK, and that was passed across. The other factor that almost certainly came into this was the growth of the maturity of the internet. Many of the ideas, many of the documents, and even some of the solutions were actually cascaded by using the internet across to the developing developing countries.
So procrastinators ruled here.
Well, I think from my perspective, I was expecting more problems in terms of the international community. In this case, the procrastinators actually took the chance and they won.
Mr. Kudrowski, do you think that institutions are very hard to move quickly? Do you really think that institutions, governments, businesses would have done as much as they did in a short amount of time if there hadn't been the threat being posed by these doomsayers? Would this work really have gotten done otherwise?
Oh, I think the work would absolutely have gotten done. Self-interest is a wonderful motivator, and so is the legal system. You know, corporations are very self-aware, very much aware of the kinds of deficiencies. Once brought to their attention, they don't need to be beat over the head repeatedly with it. So, I mean, and I guess the best indicator of that was, that in the, again, back to Gartner Group studies here, but in the, I guess, the fourth quarter of '99, more money was being spent on public relations campaigns, largely telling consumers that everything was going to be okay, than was being actually spent at that time on the fix itself. Again, suggesting that things really got out of hand.
So who do you think is at fault here? Are there some information technology consultants who are looking to make a visit to a Porsche dealership next year, or was it just an excess of caution?
Oh, a little bit of all of the above, It's, in some sense, we're looking for, perfect safety. Perfect safety when it comes to technology would mean no bugs. No bugs isn't achievable, We should stand around and look at every software application we have if what we're looking for is perfect security. It just isn't going to happen. At the same time, we're a bunch of technological hypochondriacs. You give us a seductive problem and we'll leap right into it. And Y2K was the most seductive one around. It's an instant, just add paranoia apocalypse maker where you can look at it and say, well, if this breaks and this breaks and this breaks, holy smokes, I better hide in the basement. Not surprisingly, people did exactly that, and the rest of us are sort of dealing with the aftermath.
Mr. Emery, we've been picking on information technology consultants here. Is it possible that there was a bit of alarmism involved here, just to even well-intentioned to get people to move quickly?
I think it's highly probable, and the alarmism in '96 and '97, I personally believe, actually drove the actual fixing of the crisis. We needed the governments to be shaken in '96 and '97 to actually start the ball rolling. They weren't going to start on their own.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Y2K problems that may lie ahead. More with our guests in a moment.
Golden Globe Best Actor nominee Denzel Washington is the Hurricane.
We're looking for two Negroes in a white car.
Any two will do.
Are sentenced to be imprisoned for life.
Oh, no!
I've committed no crime. The crime's been committed against me.
I'm dead. Just bury me.
Reuben Hurricane Carter.
Dear Mr. Carter, I read your book. I would like to come and visit you.
You think I killed those people, son?
No, I know you didn't.
2 juries found him guilty, Les.
But the man's innocent. That he's been in jail 16 years is not right.
You give me hope, and it's more powerful than a fist can ever be.
We gotta take it to the federal court. The judge is gonna throw it out. Then we transcend the law. We get back to humanity.
Nominated for Best Actor, Best Director, and Best Picture.
Hate put me in prison. Love's gonna bust me out.
The Hurricane. Rated R. Now in select theaters. Check local listings.
Hey, neighbor. Can I borrow some ice?
Yeah, sure. Hold this.
Yep. Thanks. Got any sugar? Toothbrush? Hairdryer?
With more barbecue and cheddar flavor you can see, more you can taste on every chip and every bite. New Ruffles Flavor Rush potato chips keep you coming back for more.
If you can stay up late for New Year's, you can stay up for Bill with Dr. Drew Pinsky and Elaine Boozler.
I'm worth staying up for.
Politically Incorrect coming up. Nashville sports are heating up. And just when you think you've seen it all, nominated for 4 Emmys, the guys on Sports Extra take you inside the game, giving you interviews with the top names and players in sports.
This is where the players go when they want to talk about what really happens during the game.
So no matter what the sport is, when you want to be in the know, go where the players go.
Sports Extra, where the players go.
Want to know more about your health? Now News 2 brings you a valuable health resource that's just a mouse click away. Just log on to WKRN.com and click on drcoop.com. Then let Dr. Coop help you find the latest information on health and medicine. Find ways to lose weight, stop smoking, and even refill your prescriptions online. And best of all, his advice is free. So come to the News 2 website and check out your family's health on WKRN.com. A service brought to you by drcoop.com and News 2.
And we're back with Paul Kodrowski, Marcia Stepanek, and Martin Emery. Marcia Stepanek, is February 29th a leap year? Is that another potential problem?
Yes, it is. It's, again, is based on the way computers count years and count periods of time. And this is another potential onion in the stew, if you will, that people will be looking at. But nobody really expects any major problems to occur from this because people who have been fixing the computers and the software applications for Y2K have been fully aware of this and are trying to fix it accordingly.
Do you think we're getting the full story, Marcia? Do you think that there are glitches out there, potentially serious ones, that we just haven't been made aware of yet?
I don't want to say yes or no unequivocally. I think there will be some glitches. Again, I think it's still too early to say for sure whether all of the computers are talking to all the other computers. This is a story about interactivity. This is about our global reliance on computer systems for many things. I think the potential is there. I think we're out of the woods almost, but it's still too early to say definitively whether there may or may not be a huge problem ahead.
Martin Emery, what potential glitches do you see ahead, if any potential targets or opportunities?
Well, I still believe we're about 40% through the actual crisis in terms of the number of glitches. But I think it's quite important to stress that every day some of America's largest corporations have thousands of IT glitches, and they never actually get to surface. My expectation is there may be a cluster around 29th of February. There will be clusters individually in different companies when they have their year ends. And also, I think we still need to keep guard for the end of 2000. During system testing, we've come across a number of problems that actually surfaced on the 31st of December 2000.
Many people have talked about the unprecedented level of international cooperation among different industries to help fix this problem. Will there be any potential benefits from that, Martin Emery?
Oh, most definitely. This is the most exciting part of Y2K, I think. I've been working in many different countries in Africa, Eastern European, Central Asia, and the degree of cooperation in the different areas and the different countries has been fantastic. I think it is very good in terms of providing a springboard for e-commerce, because this type of global cooperation will be vital in the e-world.
What about that, Paul Kodrowski? That's a silver lining there to all the doom.
Sure, it's a silver lining, but it's a pretty nasty club to have to pull out to get a bit of international cooperation on IT matters. I mean, let's pull right back to what we originally started talking about here, which was this, again, people didn't pull the word Y2K disaster out of a hat. It was a word that was bandied about by people who should have known better. And I mean, and if what we were really trying to do was find an incentive for organizations to work together across international boundaries, that's a fine thing, but let's call the UN.
To what do you attribute then this sense of alarm? Is it naivete? Is it people selling products and their services? To what do you attribute it?
Oh, a little bit of those, but I also think that people are deeply suspicious of technology. In some ways, we're entering the century the same way that we are exiting the century the same way that we entered the 19th century or the 20th century. That we have these things that we rely on. In the early century was religion, late in the century it's technology, and we at the same time we're beholden to it. We don't understand it, yet we have to use it all the time. So at the least provocation, we find ourselves wandering around wishing we could get rid of it and finding reasons to try and do that. I think we're desperately suspicious and paranoid about technology, and Y2K gave us a great excuse to exercise those fears.
Marcia Stepanek, you've been urging caution rather consistently. When will you be prepared to declare victory and go home and donate all of your beef jerky and power bars to the cause?
Well, I think one of the most powerful lessons that comes out of this is that software quality isn't very good. And Y2K is one of the most famous bugs around, but it's certainly not the only one. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of bugs. And as society becomes more increasingly reliant on software to run its everyday operations, I think it would be wise for all of us to look a little more closely at perhaps a call for industry-wide standards, not necessarily regulation, but perhaps some industry-wide licensing of software, some kind of standards that would dictate or govern just how to make the sausage, if you will, and how to make it consistently so that we don't run into some of these problems in the future.
I'd like to thank all our guests for an interesting discussion, especially those of you who stayed up all night watching for the glitches that didn't come. And I'll be back with a final thought in a moment.
We never thought we'd use OnStar for snakes.
I just hate snakes.
Yeah, traveling through Arizona, we blew a front tire. It shot off the road, and I looked down at the ground. It is crawling with rattlesnakes.
It was unbelievable.
I pushed the OnStar button. Within seconds, the OnStar advisor pinpointed our location and sent a tow truck.
Call the paramedics.
Yeah, and kept talking, because we
hate snakes.
Yeah.
The one-touch connection to people who can help.
OnStar.
Call 1-800-OnStar-7.
The critics are calling Snow Falling on Cedars haunting and beautifully crafted.
You have a gentle heart, a good heart.
A visual masterpiece and a heartbreaking love story.
I want you to marry me. Please say yes.
It transports us to a magical world.
It takes a rare thing to free oneself from the chambers of the human heart.
Snow Falling on Cedars, rated PG-13, starts Friday everywhere.
I'm ready to rumble. I'm gonna beat you like a dog. I'm your daddy today. That's right. Beat him like I told you I was coming. Right. You thought that it was over, didn't you? You thought you had a chance, but I'm here today. I told you I was coming.
Once in a century, along comes a man whose strength and courage raises him above all others.
I am the greatest.
This is how he got there.
This is my history today.
Terrence Howard and the Practices Steve Harris star in Muhammad Ali, King of the World, next Monday on ABC.
I'm gonna shake up the world.
Today on IHOP Reveal, what the 4 IHOP syrups really think.
Blueberry's pretty much the best syrup. Good on everything.
I've been on your table for, what, since you've been born?
I noticed a lot of girls go for the butter pecan.
Whichever syrup you believe, try it on IHOP's pancake partners. Eggs, bacon, or sausage, and your choice of banana nut, chocolate chip, or other specialty pancakes from $3.99 weekdays. Next time, Strawberry reveals why any time's a good time for IHOP.
Got snow? Got school? Find out with the News 2 Snowman Report. First, fast and accurate reports from News 2's Lisa Patton, Jeff Ray, and Davis Nolan. Starting with News 2 this morning, the News 2 Snowman Report lets you know if your school is in session or snowed out. News 2 Snowman Report is brought to you by Mazda, the electric-powered companies in Middle Tennessee and TVA, and the malls of Hickory Hollow, Rivergate, and Cool Springs Galleria.
As with any story, we have been on the lookout for different points of view about Y2K. So we tried to find somebody who was less than pleased about the virtually glitch-free weekend. The Associated Press found one. Dennis Olson of Hudson, Wisconsin, said he was a little disappointed because he spent $20,000 on food, drinking water, medical supplies, and a generator to prepare for the chaos that never happened. His supplies included 400 boxes of Hamburger Helper, 175 pounds of pasta, 50 bars of soap, and 9 tubes of toothpaste. Well, assuming Mr. Olson's fears of Armageddon have been put to rest, we have a suggestion for him and everybody else with too much food and too little space. America's Second Harvest, a leading hunger relief organization, is holding a Why Go To Waste drive from January 15th to February 15th. If you call their toll-free number or click on their website, they will let you know which organizations in your community can use all that Hamburger Helper. And you can get more information from the Nightline page at abcnews.com. Happy New Year, and that's our report for tonight. I'm Michelle McQueen in Washington. For all of us at ABC News, good night.
You can order a transcript or video cassette of this or any other Nightline broadcast by dialing 1-800-CALL-ABC.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
We're on the road to #1.
2 undefeated teams, 1 national championship. Number 1 Florida State takes on number 2 Virginia Tech. Michael Vick and Virginia Tech have been a Cinderella story, but the Noles plan on giving Bobby Bowden his first undefeated season. The Nokia Sugar Bowl.
The